there's nobody out there who cares about this person who's like very invested, that should be a red flag to people. Oh my god. Hello, my name is Jimmy. A little bit of a different video today. So you may or may not be aware of a recent poll that was put out by Jagex. Now, this poll essentially was sent out to a number of players. I think it was a bit more prominent in the old school community before I saw it in the RS3 guys. But the gist of the poll is that they were asking about different types of membership primarily and different account types, looking at different ways to monetize. Now, this was about a day and a half after this is being filmed that this was actually originally published, but Jagex has just recently come back with a response, and I think that there's a lot of really telling information here, and kind of just breaking into the content scene myself, but having played RuneScape for almost 25 years on and off in different metas all over the place, and now playing Andrew Gower's new game, I feel a bit qualified to talk about some of these points because I feel a lot of the disdain that the community feels, the lack of transparency, the sheer disrespect, if not even just feeling like we've been betrayed by this company over and over, right? And it's not necessarily a feeling that is new, like it's just a feeling that we've been experiencing over and over. So I'd say like anybody who played, you know, January of 2008, they would have seen the first removal of free trade and the wilderness. And I think we've seen certain things come and go over the years, but I wanted to take some time here to just talk through. So for anyone who doesn't know, the poll had some things that are kind of fine. I kind of like grouped this into just a few different things. They mentioned like, how would you feel about, let's say if you had a membership for RuneScape 3 or RuneScape old school version, OSRS. So this isn't a fine idea. I don't think that's really a big deal. Most people aren't playing both games, and some people might be more interested in paying less money. I think that's fine. Other thing that seemed okay is they're kind of talking about the premium model in general, just like having a yearly subscription cost that is cheaper. But another thing that I think falls into my bucket of moderately acceptable changes is the idea of account grouping. We already know that they recently launched Jagex accounts in the past few years or so, which took, you know, originally in the old days, maybe 20 plus years ago, you had to register with a username and a password. And eventually, as more internet authentication moved away from maintaining 1,000 usernames, people, you know, went to this world of email, and finally Jagex had like a new upgraded account system where they let people sign into one base account based on one email address, and then you had this many accounts per one email kind of grouping that happened, and then a bunch of things happened that they can do with that. So this is kind of an expected change. This is probably like the most reasonable part of the whole poll, so no issues there. But there's quite a few things that are bad here. I think at least 4 different points. So the first one that I saw was about a shorter AFK timer. I think this one's actually really kind of crazy. I don't even understand where this is coming from. I could go so many different directions with this, but if you look at the way that these games work, you know, people are gaming, some people are like doing schoolwork, or they're in college, whatever, they're chilling, or maybe they're reading a book or an article, watching YouTube or anime. There's a million reasons why people might not be 100% focused on a game, but a game like RuneScape literally exists because of how aesthetic it is, right? I'd say like around, you know, 60% of the player base is probably just kind of sat there fishing or chopping trees, or even doing some of the new mining activities like shooting stars. These are like core components of what make a game like RuneScape enjoyable, is the fact that you don't have to put literally all of your focus into it. So for them to come out and take this away and just, you know, try and let us feel comfortable with the idea of having like reduced in-game capabilities, that seems very strange. I feel like this one's kind of, this goes to the route of like pay to win, right? Like, but it's in a very strange way. It's like if for like my Black Desert Online people, they have like combat AFK dummies to train on. They have like cooking utensils. It's like, this is like, it's not exactly selling a costume that's going to let you have a faster cooking speed, but it's not too far, right? Like that's only one step away from like, okay, well, let's just give you not like an XP boost in mining, but you only have to click this many times per 20 minutes, or now you can stay logged in for an hour. Like, what's the next iteration of this, right? Like that's where it gets scary. So definitely not super happy with that one. Second point that's kind of on my bad list is with mobile support. They mention mobile only. We'll get into mobile a little bit later, because I think that's part of the larger problem here, is kind of the dehumanization of the gamer, right? The fact that people are playing differently, and maybe different players have different costs on the server. Maybe there's less intensive game inputs. My only guess on this is that they must have like a business model that says it's cheaper for mobile users. This seems really out there, and they talk about like conjoint analysis and a bunch of things in this article, like the way that they perform their surveys. I don't know, like for them to come up with something like this, I'm a little bit thrown off. I just have to wonder, like, why would they even put this in front of people? I mean, surely they knew this was going to backfire, but something tells me that they absolutely had no clue this was going to backfire, which is probably even scarier. But you guys can let me know what you think about the mobile only component. Like, would you guys want to pay for a mobile only subscription? I don't think that's something I would be interested in. I'm more of like someone using mobile to augment my gameplay, but is anybody out there just wanting to play RuneScape on mobile and that's fun for them? That's more of like the idle game thing, right? And maybe you guys feel a certain way about that, but let me know. The third point here is about enhanced player support. Arguably the worst or second worst thing on this list, depending on your perspective on some stuff. What this means is that people who subscribe to a better model of membership get better account support. So like instead of them hiring the equivalent of, you know, a $10 support agent, now they're gonna hire one who's $11, who has like a slightly higher degree of proficiency in communication skills, or they're able to have like more account access. Or I can't imagine how much worse this is and what it really means for the game overall, that they would be compromising on something that is arguably one of their very worst qualities as a company. And I don't say that without conviction. Now, people who have been following me would know this, but about a year and a half ago, I actually got banned on 4 accounts of mine. I was trying to play 9 accounts at once, which is it's not against terms of service. And it's interesting because I was doing the same thing on, at the time, just 5 accounts. One of them was membered. All of them had been subscribed previously, but 4 of them were free to play. And one of those free to plays had, like, you know, it had like a credit card membership associated with it. Of course, like, I was splashing on seagulls, and you know, I was doing this while like Twitch streaming. I was playing a hardcore, I was playing a like Rune Dragon Farm account. Neither of those accounts got hit, but 3 of my splashing accounts, ironically not the one that had membership history, just got hit for a ban, right? Even though they'd been bonded before, but I'd never had to like use the credit card to get them going with membership. But what's really crazy, and I always fault them so much for this, is that all of my accounts are on one Jagex account. I felt like massive disrespect because like my main account is like literally a May 2003 account. It's not even my first RuneScape account, but it's like the oldest main that I still have, right? I have had membership on that account for like over 15 years. At the time, I was a little bit smaller as a creator, but like not that much smaller. And like that makes me think that like, man, like you gotta have like some serious numbers to like get in the DMs of these JMods. But without getting too deep into this, I got banned on 3 of those accounts for 19 days. And what happened was just crazy. I tried posting on Reddit, and I was gaslit by a bunch of people calling me a bot, unironically. They were convinced that I'm just lying, like, and of course there's going to be false positives and even false negatives, right? You're going to have people on both sides claiming the other way because they're just trying to protect themselves and stuff. But I kind of found a massive community of people who all had this issue, like a bunch of free-to-play players that I've just gotten banned and never heard from. And it kind of opened my eyes a bit towards this large-scale incompetency that is happening behind closed doors with a lot of these game companies, right? It's the same problem you see with like Apple's customer support, right? Like there's a bunch of people out there whose job is to handle tickets, and they solve a volume of tickets, and they need certain customer satisfaction scores. They call it like CSAT. They have all this stuff that goes. Like I've worked in a little bit of the telecom side of the world, and I've seen this stuff at large, and it's nasty, right? What just really drives me mad is like seeing that at the end of the day, like there's nobody who wants to make your situation right. They don't want to do right by you as a customer. And 1 or 2 cases of this is fine. You know, if it's less than 0.1% of your customer base, it's fine probably, right? But like as these numbers become more numerous, as like higher severity cases that are like more important, as those things become like more present, that there's nobody out there who cares about this person who's like very invested, that should be a red flag to people. And right now I feel like Jagex is not acknowledging the severity of that red flag. What's crazier to the story, I guess, is that after about 3 weeks, I think it was like 19 days, I got 3 of my accounts, all 3 that had been banned. They just looked fine, right? And then you go to this expired/quashed offenses, and what does it show? of course, it shows my macro major ban, but it was quashed. So I get picked up by their system. I submit a customer support request. I submit an appeal. I go to DM a bunch of people on Twitter. This was back in 2023, and I think I was just appalled that like over the course of those 3 weeks, I was streaming the game, to like 20 or 30 people. It wasn't a big deal, but nobody ever responded to me. Nobody ever like reached out. There was no like personal apology from anyone. And you laugh, right? But like, why would they respond to me, right? Which just means that how many people is this actually happening to? And if it was a number, how do we know it's not 10 times that number and they're just like covering their asses, right? So at the end of the day, I think that them putting enhanced customer support on a poll is like such a slap in the face to every single person out there who's ever had a customer support issue, which is a number that just goes up and up and up every day. It's just so tone deaf to make this part of a poll that is going out for them trying to justify, because their whole point is how can they make more money. There's no question, no if and or but about what the intent of this poll is, right? They're trying to look at, okay, things are more expensive, we need to make more money. And like this is in parallel with like some of the best numbers this game company has ever seen playing their game, like ever. And membership has already gone up a lot. Like we are fine with like normal price increases. Have they ever just thought of like being transparent about how much it costs to run their game and like to continue growing their game and like what they need to do and like where that metric needs to be? So at the end of the day, the gap between the game developer and the gamer has never been quite so large. There is a fourth thing that I'm not going to go super deep into that is bad, that I think we could, but they're talking about a membership that has ads included. Like, is this okay? Are you guys okay with this? And all I can think of is like, literally like 22 years ago when I was like playing RuneScape Classic, I remember like the banner ads they used to have. I think originally they were like on the top and bottom, but then like later on, I think they were even on like the sides when I think RuneScape 2 first rolled out. I just have so many memories of this because I was a free-to-play player back then, and I totally get the idea of being a free-to-play, leech on their servers and all this stuff. Like, I get why Twitch has to have these pre-roll ads. Like, certain things make sense, right? But to have like a membership that is supplemented, this is a crazy concept. You would think that there's a bit more sustainability and more big picture at play than like, how do we just like go back to this business model that clearly like wasn't sustaining? Because like, that what would happen is after they have ads on, like either it wouldn't be enough or something would happen where they have to make changes. Like it's such like a band-aid on like a laceration, right? Like this is not like a small problem. If they have money issues, that's a big problem. And it's probably not going to be solved by just adding some ads for like the next year, right? So I've been telling people this for years, but I've been very bearish on Jagex as a company, and I base it in some of these account issues, like the raw separation, just this feeling that they are pretending to care. Like if we want to really go in a little bit, I'd try and have you guys focus on this actual announcement. I encourage you to read it word for word, just looking at the PR apology nature of this statement. It makes me sick seeing these people try and be personal and try and connect with us. Like if you go to the bottom of this, right, it just says the old school team. It doesn't like, this is like the least personal thing I've ever read in my life. In fact, I don't even want to read it because it's so incredibly apathetic. It's just filled with like every kind of thing that you would find in like a YouTube apology video, but more of like the corporate style, what you'd hear from like an HR department that probably is just like a waste of money for their entire company. And nothing against HR people, but sometimes they go too far, right? At the end of the day, this just reeks of carelessness and people who are not really invested in what they're building, just people that are protecting their own self-interest. I think that it's not very healthy to just cast shame on this, but rather to talk about like what a good message looks like, right? If you go back in history to like the original RuneScape posts that were made by like Andrew Gower and the small team of people, you can see such a stark difference in how communication was done and how much better of a gaming experience it was for the people who were playing it. And I think that, like all things, the pendulum always swings back. And if that is to transpire in the long term, I could see a very high likelihood that this company does not succeed in the far future. And when I say succeed, I just mean that they have to make serious changes, or else I think like there are certain decline that's going to happen, right? They're going to meet certain challenges that people won't support them in. It's just a red flag, right? And I know I've said some things here that are a bit controversial, but I think at the end of the day, they have a responsibility to keep their game enjoyable, right? This isn't necessarily a business primarily. It is not a casino. This is a video game. It is a computer, massive multiplayer online game. And if they want to sustain their game, they need to make sure that they keep it that way. Or they're taking a massive risk and turning the ship too fast and having people fall off from the sudden movement. Now, I will also add to this video a bit of a part 2 here. I don't think this is a problem that's like just restricted to Jagex. We've seen some major hits in the gaming space, like stuff with Ubisoft, and you have Blizzard kind of constantly refarming and repumping this content that is branded in nostalgia and a bunch of things that people really identified with in the old days. And I think there's going to be a lot of monetization challenges these guys face. But just to give you guys a really crazy statistic, kind of in a send-off for this video, in 2023, gaming revenue actually hit $196 billion. $196 billion. This is just revenue, right? I think about like all of these content creators getting sponsored in these massive, 5, 6, 7-figure campaigns.
I'm not going to say what game it is. Over $300,000 to play the game one day.
That are just adding up in crazy ways. These companies are spending literally hundreds of dollars on some of these gamers, and that's just a mobile number. But the estimates in this exact report that I found here show that like the revenue number is expected just for mobile to break $1 trillion, by 2032, which is only like 7 more years from now. You might think that's like super far away, but you guys, before we know it, like there will be RuneScape 6 will come out, and old school will have like version 2 or 3. Like stuff will change. The game will be larger, more complicated, if it's still around, which I hope it will be. I'm not trying to wish ill nature on any of these games, but at the end of the day, there's just such like a disconnect here. And I'd say my personal advice, if you have been following my channel, you know I've been playing Andrew Gower's new game. This is actually Brighter Shores. I've been playing Brighter Shores for the longest time, and this game just went into early access in November, and I've been super bullish on it. But I'd say you guys should really try and focus on rewarding sustainability. Look at games that have models that are good, games that you enjoy, games that you can see a future for. I feel like this is going to overall help you have a better time playing these games. You're going to spend less time complaining, less time fearful about what change might be coming. These things will add up in such a good way that I think you should try and find groups of management that you're kind of on the same page with. Look at like things you understand, like to our posts, this idea of like, how do we actually have like a communication with this player base that is personalized? Like try and find the game companies that are doing it the right way, because those guys are going to find more success in the long term. If we're always supporting things with our wallets, it's important that we also like know ourselves, know like our limitations, our challenges. Like some people are more prone to gambling than others. Like they're going for loot boxes. These are avoidable things. I don't need to be everyone's parent to say that it's good to know what your limits are, what your weaknesses are, and try and push you in the right direction so that you're investing your time and, hard work into things that are like actually beneficial for you. Yeah, without monologuing too much, just like try and like think critically about like what you're looking at and like avoid these scummy business models. I have a lot of disdain for what Jagex has done in oddly the past 17 years or so. I think the company's been progressively getting worse as different layers of new management have kind of been involved. And at the end of the day, this is not a gaming company. It is a business that only wants to maximize the amount of money that it can make from each of its customers, and each customer to them is no more than a number that they are interested in increasing and extracting all of the value from before they're cast aside to be replaced by the next guy. That's not the type of machine that I'd want to support. So try and find something that you can enjoy, improve yourself. I like focusing on progression, finding it in the smallest, most trivial of things. And don't forget that comparison is the thief of joy. If you're always trying to get that highest tier of gear, try and think of like your own achievements for what they are, and don't necessarily feel that you have to go out of your way to maybe like buy a weapon upgrade or something. You're fine and strong just the way that you are. At the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to be honest with what you're capable of and what your achievements are. So I hope you guys have an excellent day. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I've been looking at getting into sponsors, but I think for now we're going to try and stay sponsor free so that we can keep pumping out lots of quality content while we continue to grow the channel. But yeah, I'm closing in on 1,000 subscribers, so all the support is much appreciated. I do stream on Twitch, but I hope to see you guys around, and I will catch you in the next one.